Hello and welcome to another Blender tutorial brought to you by Luwizart. My name is Emmanuel Okafo and I hope you guys are doing well. So today, in continuation to the previous tutorial which I did on how to create real-time hair inside Blender, you guys left comments wanting to know how you can generate your own textures. Usually you can get this from Google, but definitely those textures you get from Google are either low res or don't have enough information which you could play to create more realistic looking hair. So that's what we're doing today. I'm going to be showing you guys methods of getting lots of data that can help you speed up the entire process of creating nice looking real-time hair. So if you're wondering the process or the method I use to be able to generate this kind of hair, you should watch my previous tutorial. I will leave a link in the description so you can check it out. So this is generated with Blender particles and it might look quite a lot, or if this works for you then it's fine, but if you need less hair you can always use the decimate modifier and reduce it. It doesn't reduce the quality of the texture, it just reduces the geometry, so it's going to look more low poly, but yeah, it works. Okay, so let's jump into a new Blender scene where we'll be creating the hair textures. So at this moment, I want to assume that you know the type of hairstyle you're trying to create, be it for characters or just like a nice clumpy hair for human hair. So to do that, let's go ahead and add a plane. Now I'll go to the particles tab, selecting the plane. Before that, let's go to object, apply rotation and scale. This is just a personal practice which I usually do just to make sure I'm working with the accurate information before applying any modifier or particle system. Now I'm just going to hit this plus icon and set this to hair. So you can either flip the normal by hitting Shift N, Alt N, sorry, so recalculate the normal. It's going to flip it, or you just rotate it manually, but anyway, any method is fine. So we're going to get like a plane with the hair, so we'll just scale it down slightly. Okay, so probably 1000 is quite a lot for this. Just set it to 500, reduce the length depending on what you're going for, so probably like 2, maybe 3. Okay, usually I also like to uncheck the random order, and for the particle spaces I increase it to 1000, and I think this is quite a lot still, so I'm just going to reduce this to like 200. Okay, so we have our basic setup for creating the text, the groom, and now we can switch into the particle edit. Here we just want to just groom it roughly. All you just want to do is like create just like a dynamic shape which will not look so repetitive but looks nice, and if needed you create multiple textures from same camera view, because since you'll be rendering it from Blender, so you get an exact position of it, so you can go in and like create different style from that. So this is something I'm just going to do. It's not going to be perfect. I think this looks okay. As I said, you don't want to make it look so unique, because in this sense it's going to be replicated so many times, so you want to make it unique enough that it looks nice, but still you have the ability to be able to replicate it so many times with it not feeling like a tiled stuff. Okay, so this is just, it's not really necessary, but I like to do it. Just gonna select the tape and just scale it in the Y axis. Okay, so this is what we have. Probably have to save this too. Okay, so let's go to viewport display and just increase the strand step so we can have more. So like I said, you have to have the idea or basic idea of the hair you're trying to create. So for this hairstyle, we know it's just a generic male hairstyle. So based off the character, probably you don't need to have like really rough hair. You need it to be like silk hair with this kind of hairstyle to match the character. So you should also bear that in mind. So when you're like creating the texture or downloading the texture, you're getting something that matches the style which you want to get at the end, because you can get a rough looking hairstyle for the card and match it into the character style which you've groomed. So you need to make everything colorate. Oh, anyway. Okay, so let's just add an interpolated children style. Set it to like 12. So I'm going to increase the clump slightly, and for the roughness I am going to this endpoint just roughly, so we get a bit of fuzziness, so it doesn't look so stuck together like he has so much palm. So also a bit of roughness just to randomize stuff, and the threshold. Okay, so this is not perfect, but it can work. I will just tweak some more stuff. Probably just move this. Now I can see how it's going to look. I can have a better idea on grooming it all together. Okay, so once you're happy with it, you can proceed to the next stage, which is to add a camera. Okay, so you want to switch the camera to an orthographic camera so we can get like a nice view of everything. So once you place it in the position, I think we probably need to, anyway, let's just keep moving. So once you place it in the position which you want, and it can take some adjustment, so you can adjust it by playing with this orthographic scale to assist you with that. And then for the resolution, you want to go with something that in textures works better when it's in squares, like so either 2K texture, 1K texture, 4K texture, depending on your needs. But for this, I'm going to go for a 2K texture, which is 20 by 48. Okay, and I can either grab it or just use this scale to move it inwards some more. So we're getting like the whole pixel and not wasting any extra space. Okay, we can even do something like, anyway, let's just keep that. That's extra. So if you need more varieties, you can duplicate this, groom it, render it out still, and everything is good. So for the rendering, we'll be switching to Eevee, and we'll be rendering with Eevee because it's faster, and since we're not looking for much realism with this, so Eevee is perfect. So I'm just also going to render out the final render mount to be 12, which I could change later. And in the hair property, I'm going to switch this to strip, so I can actually see how it's going to start to look in the final render. So for the hair shape, I can just play with it till when I'm slightly happy, and at this point I probably will increase the display amount to like 30. So most of this stuff is just tweaking so you have something looking good. So I'm going to go with 30. So you don't want to make it dense, because each of these haircuts are going to be applied to just one hair. So depending on the style which I like, I keep hammering on, you should know the hairstyle you're trying to create, because it really guides and allows you to be able to create nice looking hair textures. So for what I'm creating, I think 30 is too much, so probably I'll just end up with 15. It's enough, but we get like nice spacing, so we can enjoy that too. probably even 10. Anyways, so for the shading part, you have to switch to rendering now. I have an HDRI, so anything can work. You could use a lamp, but I prefer lighting my scene with HDRI. So let's create a new material for this. So we'll be using a principal VSDF since we're in EV, and let's go ahead and give it a color. So for the color, we'll be using a color ramp. Okay, and for the input, we'll be selecting hair info. So this hair info is going to be driving the factor for the color ramp. So first of all, we want to get the interception. So if we preview this, we can see how this is working. So we can set it to B-spline so we can have a more smoother transition. Okay, so now we have like we have colors that is indicating the position of the root. So since I know I'm going to be exporting this to Blender or any other 3D application, I want to have like control over the entire process, because right now once we export this texture, we're going to lose like the control over like stuff like the color of the root of the hair, the color of the middle point or the tip. So I usually want to have control over that. Even though I have a color set in mind, I usually want to have control over that. So the basic way I do that is to use changes to like an RGB. So this is going to be R. I'm going to add another point and set this to G. Okay, and this is going to be B. So now you can see clearly we have the red, green, which has like some in-betweens, which is also nice, and then the blue for the tip. And where this come in handy is if I grab the converter and separate RGB, you can see now with any package I can be able to separate these different passes instead of being stuck with the final render we get from this. Okay, so right now it's nice, but we need some to break up the cleanness of this hair. So to do that, we'll also duplicate this, and this time we'll set it to random. So if we preview this random, you can see we get same thing, but the colors are being broken down, and we can combine these two with the mix node and set this to probably color. Okay, so forget all of that. I made a mistake. I mean, all this stuff I just told you is valid, but there's a more streamlined way of working with this. So we have the hair info node, the hair converter, we add a map node, we set this to subtract. Okay, so the thickness basically is giving the interception is basically giving us the starting point and the ending point of the hair, and the randomness is basically giving us like random values of the hair. So we want to add the interception and the random. So it's going to give us this kind of nice cutout that even though we're getting that transition, it's still subtracting out those nice different color values, and we can now plug that into this. So we don't need the second ramp. Okay, so we can play with this. So we're still getting the tip, the middle point and the end point. So probably want to take this down a bit. Okay, so I think this looks good, and once we're happy, we can either render this out as an emission color like it is, so it doesn't have any specular highlights, which is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to hit F12 to render. So before we render, let's go over some settings. So we already have a 2K texture which is at 100%, and for the sample You can leave it at 64. Since we're using a texture color with emission, that is fine. And also we can turn off, or we can enable this ambient occlusion, so we can see how it's looking without this. So right now it's not so visible. We can see it once we have this. So you might want to also turn on ambient occlusion. I'm just all over the place. So I'm going to render it out with like the principled BSDF, but I'm going to turn off the roughness, because the reason I'm doing that now is so I can take advantage of the ambient occlusion, so we can get like some depth just from this single shot. So as you can see, the difference is going to look flat, but if we have ambient occlusion, it's going to look like it has depth. So now if we hit F12, and before that we need to go down to this film and uncheck this transparent, so that we can render out just a PNG image that already has transparencies. So just hit F12, and since it's EV, it doesn't take a long time. So if you're happy with how it looks, you can go ahead and save your file with Shift Alt S. So I'm just going to save it on the desktop, and let's go back to this. So for this, in the previous tutorial I actually showed how you can apply I showed you how you can just set everything up, but we're going to do that again. So I'm going to just open several windows. Okay, so we have the hair, so let's create a new material for this. Call this hair. Okay, and so in the previous video I showed you that once you just create this text particles and convert it into hair, it gives you like a unified UV map which you can actually play with, and later you can customize by moving stuff around. But with this unified UV map we can just easily place everything. Okay, so in the material setting of the hair, we want to make sure we have, by default is set opaque, we want to switch it to alpha hashed. If you're rendering with EV, alpha hash is the best blend mode that can give you the best result, especially if you're trying to render out hair. Okay, and now for the final touch, let's add a texture. Open, we load it in, make it the base color, and also make it an alpha. So I usually like to add a color ramp so I can tweak stuff if necessary. So let's see what we're having. So right now it's not looking so pretty, so let's place everything. So we just rotate this Z. So this is just basic UV unwrapping. We can scale it Y. So you want to make sure it's facing the right position. Okay, we could even make it like lesser. Like I said, the hairstyle should be in mind. So as we're seeing, the current clump of the hair is quite a lot, so we want to reduce that a bit. We could do that by moving stuff around here, but we tend to lose detail. Okay, so we could fix that by just tweaking the texture some more. So let's go back here, and we'll just reduce the amount of children for rendering. So let's say we'll render out just 2 and hit F12. Okay, so we'll replace this and let's preview it again. For some reason it's not okay. So I've set up the material again and we can preview it. So you can see now we have less hair. I'll just move this material. Okay, so as you can see, it's looking nice, and the hairs are not looking so overwhelming. And now with this, we can actually select this hair. If we need to make things even sharper, we can just move the slider and it will make things a lot more sharper. Okay, so at this point, if you're happy with it, we can proceed to creating the material. So we have this nice shader, this nice texture, so we can do separate RGB, and this gives us a lot of color information, so we can get the ones for the green, though it's not so obvious with this. Okay, so you can see we have one for the blue, red, and green, so we can use this to really create the color. So let's add a mix node. So this will be the factor. So if we preview it, so here we can play with the textures we want. So let's give him like let's give him brunette color, or let's make him a brunette. So duplicate this and can use the blue factor to preview this. So you can see we can give the tip a different color from the rest of the hair, which even gives it more nice looking effect. So probably I need to add more clump, so we can do that easily later. Let's just do the color, then I will add more clumps. Okay, so let's do one for the tip, which should be the red. So let's try the green. So this should come. This is like for the middle, and this is the roots color of the hair, and this is going to be like this. Okay, awesome. So as you can see, just from that image, we can get this lot of texture information. So let's just quickly add more clumps, so we can increase this to 10 and save it out. So as you can see, it has updated. We just reduce this, and we have our hair. So yeah, that's basically the trick. Like I said earlier, if you think that the hairs are quite a lot for what you need, you can always decimate without it really messing up things too much. But with it looking full, is how smooth it looks. Okay, so that will be the end of this tutorial. I hope it was helpful. If you wish to see more from me, please hit that subscribe button. So bye bye for now. See you next time.